So, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. This is Andrew Turner, the host and founder of the G&T Sessions podcast. And today I've got an amazing guest, Mr. Chris Cooke. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you very much for having me, Andrew. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
So, Chris is joining us from the tech centre of the world, in London. And we've obviously had a few different guests from a few different locations over the last period when we actually launched the G&T Sessions podcast. And Chris and I met actually a while ago at the kind of the vibrant meetup groups that are running in London. Met through a mutual friend and who's in the banking industry. And then, as Chris will explain, he was blatantly trying to fill up a very interesting trip on the Jolly Roger. On the seas. And I willingly jumped in with both feet and both hands. So
before anyone thinks we became pirates, let me explain how we met. So I was very fortunate last year. My housemate owned a 45-foot sailing yacht, and he was launching his own startup, and he wanted to do that traditional, typical social meetup, that sort of thing. All sailing, no sails. So he suggested I invite some people. At the time, I was working for an Atlassian partner. And so I reached out to anyone and everyone I could and tried to sell them a free boat trip, which, as you can imagine, went quite well.
Was it oversubscribed? Yeah, exactly.
Yes, and it's one of those things where, like, I get people now messaging me a year later, like, "Oh, hey, actually," and I'm like, "No, that boat literally has sailed. I'm no longer offering free boat tours to everyone on LinkedIn, I'm afraid." But no, it was grateful you made the time, and it really is, a great opportunity to get to know each other. And sailing is one of those, activities where you have to work as a team, otherwise you're going to have a bad time. And you were brilliant pulling on all the ropes when I barked at you. So, you matched me drink for drink at the end. So yeah, we got on very well.
Yeah, we couldn't drink actually during the trip. He was very good at. It was very rules based. Was yours
proper? Yes, you need with a good skipper. There you go.
And I don't know if you know. I've actually done my day skipper. I did it down in Poole in Dorset.
Oh, lovely.
And I know that obviously my performance on that day didn't show that I was actually remembered anything about it. But obviously psychologically, I was still the day skipper.
You were ready.
Exactly.
You look like you knew what you were doing, at least.
So I'm just sat here. For people that are on YouTube, I can see they've got some rigging behind us here in this location, this undisclosed location. It's not actually a prison cell, but you never know. That could be in the future. Anyway, so obviously we talked about getting on this episode today because one of the things that I think I noticed when we met the other month was that Chris has been involved in quite a bit of G&T, and obviously that doesn't involve alcohol, although sometimes it has been. But he's been involved in the tech industry for quite a while, and also involved in something called growth, which is always a bit of a challenge for some organisations. So could you just introduce yourself and explain what you do? What gets you up in the morning? What actually do you do on your daily life?
Sure. So I've been in the Atlassian ecosystem for about 5 years now, working mostly in growth marketing, sometimes in sales, and more recently I've started my own startup that makes apps. So Atlassian, for those that don't know, is project management, software development lifecycle tools such as Jira and Confluence, which allows you to track projects and also use as an internal collaboration wiki. So a lot of the space is dominated by very technical developers, and we noticed a gap in the market where most of the users nowadays are less and less technical, and there's not enough add-ons for those people. So we're making tools beautifully designed, easy to use, just simple drag and drop interface, and so far it's been quite well received.
So Atlassian, because I was actually with some of my Australian friends this week, last week in London. Atlassian's a bit of a kind of a Aussie success story, isn't it? What's I mean, obviously for people that don't know Atlassian, how will you describe Atlassian? What's the backstory on Atlassian?
So the growth there is brilliant. I mean, take what they say with a pinch of salt, but their press release says that they don't have a marketing department.
or sales either. They say they don't have sales either, which is interesting.
Sure, which, you know, anyone that knows the game knows that, you know, okay, they're not called salespeople, they're called technical account managers, but the difference isn't much. But genuinely, they have kept that Australian casual charm. Their emails still open with "Good day, mate." Their company values are no bullshit. Don't screw with the customer.
Sell the customer. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So they're keeping that traditional Aussie honesty and being blunt about business, and because they're different, it's a breath of fresh air. Yeah, quite honest and abrupt compared to a lot of the polished Silicon Valley startups. So they're doing really well, and they're a massive success because people needed their tools back when everyone was using, you know, IBM. Developers, the story goes, were buying Jira with their own credit cards because it was just such a better tool. So.
Yes, I don't know if I've ever spoke to you, because I know Mike Canon Brooks and the Atlassian guys. So when I was at WANdisco back in 2007, I actually went to Sydney, Darling Harbour, and famously met Mike and their team over there because we were doing some OEM work with them. And I'll always forget the time when, you know, we came into reception, me and Dave Richards, the CEO, and he walks down the stairs, and he's the CEO co-founder with Scott, and he's there with his surf shorts on, no shoes. And he goes, "Oh, Andrew, we've got some really good new T-shirts in. Do you want to go and help yourself?" That was his opening line to me. So, even the swag that Atlassian had, you know, was legendary. I mean, I remember, you know, going to running meetup groups in London with some of the other guys, and everybody just raced for the swag from T-shirts because they had these really kind of quirky kind of phrases on. I don't know if you remember that time, but that was obviously in the quite early days when they just had Jira and I think Interconfluence, because obviously they've got a lot of products now in the range. And so
I think it's been 10 years since I bought a T-shirt. There's no need when you work in this space. There's so many good T-shirts given out for free.
You just wear them until they fall off your back.
Yeah, fair enough.
But the interesting thing about you saw about IBM, because obviously IBM is a bit of a tech titan. You know, the tech dinosaur, tech titan. But so Mike Canon Brooks, actually, his father worked for IBM. He was quite senior in IBM, I think, Asia Pacific. And he actually said to his father that he wants to create a software company that wasn't like IBM, which I think they've achieved, actually. There's a really good TED talk, which I don't know if you've seen, by Mike Canon Brooks from a couple of years ago, when he actually talks about being authentic, when he actually goes through some scenarios about taking phone calls from customers, and there was only 2 of them in the office, and they go, "Okay, Scott, you're going to be the finance team today. Okay, let me just put through the finance team." And there's only 2 of them in the office.
Yeah, I think we've all played that game at some point, especially when a customer's asked for a discount. You're like, "Let me just have a word with our CEO." Yeah, the CEO says we can't do it. Sorry.
So you said that you work for a Atlassian partner, and I mean, so I suppose your kind of introduction to technology, which obviously is kind of ubiquitous now with everything we do on a daily basis. And obviously, I looked through my bank account; it's got all these. Oh, Google have just taken this for my G Suite account. You know, Apple have just taken this for my download and whatever. What's been your segue? How did you get involved in tech?
Well, not the direct route, but as you say, tech is so ubiquitous now that they'll take any dregs from society off the streets. I was a salesman, actually high street sales. So it had to be high volume. It was in Canterbury, standing on the street, getting people to do this little boat tour. And so we had to make 300 sales a day, which was phenomenal training. And then, yeah, this was just as the recession hit. So it's just as I was finishing uni. I made a £9,000 sales bonus at the end of the year.
Wow.
And with that, I was out to Thailand. I started my own tour company out there. I figured if I could work that hard for someone else, I could do it for myself. So I started a turtle conservation and scuba diving school out in Thailand, in this up-and-coming area. Yeah, it was pretty good. And really good experience as well. And I took those things from my high street sales background. So I'd always be running around all day, all evening, meeting people in restaurants and bars, convincing them to do my boat trips. But
so is this like paddy training as well?
Yeah. So I was a paddy qualified scuba dive instructor, and then there was this beautiful island where they were rescuing sea turtles. I was always in a reggae band as well, but that's another story for another podcast. So yeah, it was a small town. So there's only so many face-to-face sales I could do. So I kind of learned marketing just out of frustration and boredom during the low season. And being an entrepreneur, obviously, you have to be both, right? You can't.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the other department will handle that, right? Like the buck.
You can make that secret phone call, can't you? Say, I just need to put you through to the marketing department. And you go.
Marketing department doesn't pick up the phone.
Oh, sorry.
Knows that.
They're all out for lunch. Yeah.
So yeah, I had to learn both. And then when things sort of started falling apart in Thailand, the political coup made it time for me to go home.
Was that you? That was you, wasn't it? That was your fault.
In the words of Shaggy, it wasn't me. So.
What, Shaggy the rap star or Shaggy the one in Scooby-Doo?
Both, probably. So I went back to England, and I knew I wanted to get into tech, but it really was like starting from zero again. And you know, on paper, I thought my CV was quite good. I'd grown 2 companies, I had 12 staff working under me, I'd made loads of money, but they just saw it as bumming around on the beach in Thailand. So I was back to living with my parents, cycling to a cold calling job, which was pretty miserable.
Oh wow!
But yeah, to do that at 31, to start again, wasn't easy. But at the same point, it couldn't have been better for me because I then had to just start from zero, learn from how to do the cold calling for tech.
Oh wow!
And hated it and was miserable as hell doing it, as most people are. I respect anyone that can.
What were you selling?
So that was actually training.
Okay. What you mean, like technical training? You mean?
Yeah, but it was professional services, and then so from there I managed to get a job at Clear Vision, major Atlassian partner.
Oh, yeah, I know those guys.
Yeah, they're cool. And I was doing marketing campaigns.
What's the CEO called? What's the CEO called?
Jerry Toombs. Shout out to Jerry.
Gerald.
He's a lovely guy.
Hello, Gerald.
And
that's like Benny Hill.
So I got a job.
I worked with those guys. There was Neil as well, wasn't it? Neil and Jerry.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. So I mean, and that was the best place like I ever could have ended up. I was phenomenally lucky to be there because they were rapidly growing, and they just needed as much help as they could get. To be honest, I wasn't entirely honest on my CV, but when I got the job, like a lot of people, I just spent every night furiously Googling how to do my job. Faked it till I made it, and after a year, I knew what I was doing. I was pretty good. And then learned about marketing and automation.
It's interesting, Clear Vision, you see, because that was actually they tried to become a One Disco partner. So I met Jerry, and back in late 2007, I think it was 2008, and they were massive. They were like Clearcase guys, yeah. And obviously we were partnering with all the cool ones, like Atlassian and all these guys. And this was, I think, probably the time that he was trying to work. Jerry was trying to work out. Oh, do we move away from IBM, to these new tech companies that we don't know if they're going to win or not? It's like quite fascinating. Wow.
Yeah, so that was their background. And then once they decided to make the leap, they were one of the early people to spot the huge potential of Atlassian. And then so they were able to take all of their IBM clients and help them migrate over towards Atlassian. And built the business off the back of it.
Yeah, because it was like an install base of customers that they could actually transition. Yeah, okay.
And the other thing they did very well was partnerships. So I don't know whether it worked out with One Disco, but they set up really good partnerships with SHI, Software One, Grey Matter, all of these huge people who, didn't really know or care what Atlassian was, but they just had contract terms with all the big companies, and so they were able to set up those reseller partnerships.
I mean, when we were doing the One Disco stuff, this was before Git, so this was like CVS in Subversion, so it was very quite early, and obviously it was like a source code management, shootout kind of thing. You know,
for those that don't know, just to break it down simply, because I'm quite good at explaining complex things, quite basic terms that salespeople can understand. So it's just like version control. So when you're working on a Google Doc together, right? It's that, but for coding. So when you're making, say, GTA 7, you've got 500 developers all working on the same thing at the same time. You need proper version control, see who's working on what, who's edited what, press undo if they've messed it up, and have different people working on the same code repository at the same time without anything breaking.
You've got a big future. I can tell you've got a big future.
Cheers,
that was I've got this like Mexican mustache, you see, I'm developing here.
Are you growing that for Movember, or just haven't got around to shaving?
No, I'm doing it for Movember. I might keep it. I might keep it.
So I also haven't shaved for Movember, and you see how impressive the results are. When I grow up, I want a moustache just like you, Andrew.
You're a boy child, yeah, exactly. Okay, so what you're saying is you joined Clear Vision, and that was a way of you getting into tech, really, wasn't it? To get that's a fire brackets gentle introduction into tech.
Yeah. Okay. And it was brilliant because it was marketing campaigns. I was the bridge between marketing and sales. And it was perfect role for me because coming from an entrepreneurial background, I never saw the difference between marketing and sales. I used to do both. Right, and I was amazed how even a medium-sized company, I suppose small by your standards, 120 people, the silo between marketing and sales were huge. I mean,
what you mean? Clear Vision with 120 people?
Yeah, and growing rapidly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Didn't realize it was that big. Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, even a medium-sized company like that, the sales and marketing weren't talking; they weren't working together. And I was trying to be a bridge, right. But yeah, it was a very swayy, unsteady rope bridge that was always planks falling down. It was constantly difficult.
Like a Harrison Ford moment, you know, with
yeah. Okay. And I was shocked because for me they should be obvious partners and friends, right? Like they both want the same thing, or so I thought. But obviously you appreciate this. Sales and marketing are very different people, philosophically aiming for different things. And this is why I love learning about Agile and DevOps, because I heard about the problems testers and developers were having. For me, it resonated. I was like, well, sorry, marketing and sales are worse. They should be driving in the same direction, but they're not. They're completely siloed. They don't talk even.
Yeah, you see what you see.
Let alone pull together.
You know that book, Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. We should write a book about that, shouldn't we? Like developers are from Mars, or something like that. You know.
Or sales and marketing. Yeah, and I mean
that's a great idea actually. Marketers are from Mars. Sales are from Venus.
I do believe that sales and marketing need their own DevOps moment because the silos are very real, and I think philosophically, different people are attracted to those different departments, right? So you either have your creative person, right? Someone that got a bachelor's in arts and found out that they couldn't get a job doing that full time, so now they're drawing pictures for the marketing team, or your data nerds. Those are the two types of people attracted to marketing. And you know, the old cliche is that salespeople are the jocks, right? the go-getters. They think quickly, they break things. They don't have time to sit around and debate what color the logo should be, and they don't care, right? So I understand why those two don't mix, but when they do, the power is amazing, and especially nowadays with what's available in terms of automation, the technology, you can really automate a lot of the stuff that sales don't want to be doing, and enable them to have the visual insights that often marketing get, but then just before you would just sit on a PowerPoint presentation. Now sales can use that in real time when talking to someone to see, which websites has this account been checking out? Okay, maybe I'll upsell that to them, right? And when you connect the dots, it is beautiful.
Yeah, because I can't remember what it's called. There was a company I used before, Lead
Forensics. Yeah.
Well, it's Lead Forensics. There's one called Lead Runner or something before that, I think, because the thing, it's this intelligence thing. Because I think, you spot on with the different, I suppose, different characters you've got in marketing and sales, but ultimately the thing is about how do you create a compelling demand to take through a process to close business and grow the revenue line. But I think sometimes marketeers, and I've done marketing, I've done product marketing roles before, besides doing sales roles, is it's sometimes the marketeers are kind of a bit detached from reality. Yeah, you know, I think the concept of some of the tech startups I've been working with over the last 10 years is that some of them, because they get so much funding, they kind of like, oh, I've got all this funding, what do I spend it on? And sometimes the spend plan, they spend it on the wrong things, they build the wrong capabilities, and they don't get the right results. So it's getting a joined up plan on that. I think it's absolutely essential. And I think, you know, I'll ask you the question. I mean, the thing about actually getting marketing to actually have tangible measures on them that actually can influence the growth curve of a company and the top line growth and the, you know, profitability ultimately. You know, that's one of the challenges I've seen. It's a bit like it's the vanity KPIs, the vanity measures, yeah. and not enough.
To borrow a line from hip hop, if it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. So we're gonna do like a DJ set. No, but I suppose the thing is that, you know, what one question I suppose that springs to me is about what's the poster child. So what's the best operation you've seen between, you know, getting that, obviously apart from Clear Vision, but gets that marketing sales engine working properly. Anybody you come across in your travels?
Yeah. So I'm very impressed by teams that are technical and don't have a sales and marketing background. And what they often end up doing is thinking outside the box and not falling into the same old tired ways. So for example, although I could cite many, software plan. So they do big picture, Gantt charts for big enterprise clients who use Gantt and want that sort of level of long-term roadmap project planning.
Yeah.
And you know, when we approached them, they didn't have a sales team, was what they told us. But what we realized, anyone that says they don't have a sales team it just means your marketing end up doing some sales, your tech guys end up doing some sales, right? Your support end up doing some sales. So
yeah, which is a bit like the Atlassian model. Yeah.
Yeah. So even though officially they didn't have a sales team, they had a bunch of different departments working together, and sales was like a little accelerator squad of cross collaboration and cross pollination, and that's why you end up doing some quite interesting things, because you have some people who aren't necessarily from that background thinking outside the box on how to do these things and automating as much as possible. So as you know, like if you give a job to a busy person, they will find a way. I think
they do like a hack, basically, won't they?
Yeah, right. I think Bill Gates says, like, if you want something done, give it to a busy or lazy person, and they'll just find an easy way around it. And sure enough, I've seen people automate themselves out of a job very efficiently. So once you start connecting the pieces, and again, there's an app for that, right? Invariably, there is. If your salespeople have a clear view on who's clicking on what parts of the website, when they're forwarding your emails on to people. So we live in an age where click of a button, you can send 10,000 emails, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And again, this is what I learned from the cold calling job. They would just had a phone book, start with Aaron Aronofsky and call him. Do you want training? No. Okay, let's go to Aaron Adosky, right? Oh, God. Stupid, right? Ridiculous. It's a dying art, and it should be, because that's a miserable job. Instead, you just email those people. You only focus on those that are
who respond.
And not only do you do that, but you do that when the iron's hot. So even nowadays, when everyone knows about these marketing automation, if you pick up the phone, and this is why you need salespeople, because your marketing team aren't going to pick up the phone and do it, right? If you pick up the phone and call that person as they're looking at your website,
yes,
invariably they'll be like, you know, what a coincidence. I was just, oh yeah, oh my God, the stars have aligned, right? Like it's serendipity, let's talk. And done at scale, that can be beautiful, because you can not only see when they're opening your email, but when they're forwarding it. And that's the time. And then you can always be triaging and prioritizing. And that is the dream for a salesperson, that sort of real-time analytics. That's how wars are won, right? Like having the radar, knowing where things are and who to target and why. And when you call them, you're not just reading from a standard script, but you know which websites they've been on So you know exactly what to talk to them about. So,
I think what that's interesting. But what that raises is the workflow. Yeah. What is the path? What is the buyer's journey? Yeah. So I think what I always observe is that more work needs to be done on actually mapping out, like a pattern of what's the ideal buyer's journey, and then actually seeing when you put that live, then what is actually following that path, and actually then do you have to adjust it and iterate on it a little bit. But yeah, I think you're spot on that. I mean, that's the kind of ideal sales experience, because actually it's in their head right at the moment. They're actually in a buying. They're receptive to a sales and get a discussion. Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. I've skipped forward a few steps there. So in order to get someone there, that means that they've seen your website, they've seen your white paper. And a lot of the clients I talk to, they want to just jump to the bit where they start making sales. And like you say, if this is where marketing's invaluable, and it's easy to make fun of marketing as the picture drawers, right?
Where are those crayons? Yeah, where are they?
But if marketing haven't done their job, a salesperson talking to that person will never make a good impression.
Correct.
Right, and it's the difference between the guy standing outside of Tesco's with some stuff in his coat, being like, "Hey, my friend, like cheap chicken." There's a reason why you don't buy off that guy. You go into the shop and you buy from a trusted brand.
I told you not to tell him about that story with me.
I respect the hustle, man.
Look, no chicken.
Because you're sold out, because you're a good salesman.
Yeah. Oh my God. No, but I think we see what you highlight. When you talked about the characteristics of marketing and salespeople, the good marketeers actually do think that thing through, the buyer's journey. They then think about what would be the path that they could follow. How do you actually build a relationship and an engagement and deeper trust with that particular, that particular prospect. And then it's how do you transition that into a commercial discussion? Yeah. Because I think on the sales side, the thing I've learned is obviously you can have lots of conversations, but I'll give you an example. Some of the tech CEOs that I've worked with, they assume that every sales conversation is going to lead to a sale in the moment. Yeah. And as we both know, Chris, that doesn't quite happen every time. Yeah.
Sadly not, no.
I've just got my order pad here. Just want me to send that. But
yeah, that's all sales is, right? We just take the orders, write down the number.
But once you get your head around that you've got to get the person to, you got to work out if that person is actually ready to buy. Yeah. And actually have you built enough trust and understanding with that about what you're offering, and then you can get into a proper conversation about how you could help them.
And of course, the larger the enterprise customer you're dealing with, and often this is the case, people want to deal with bigger and bigger clients, right? It doesn't even matter exactly what the person you're talking to wants. It's what all the other stakeholders want, right? You're going to have a technical gatekeeper that's going to have to check out the validity of this proposal. Is it going to interfere? Is it going to integrate with the other systems? So you're going to make sure. And again, you could say, the old school sales way would be, can you put me on a phone with all 8 stakeholders I'm going to need to sell to a bank? The CTO is not going to want to talk to you, right? Because every other salesperson wants to talk to that guy, right?
Yes.
But if you have a very good white paper that can be circulated internally, and your internal champion can put a couple of slides in their presentation, that's how you're going to win it. And so that's the key to understanding, is that if you're going to cross the chasm to enterprise sales, you're going to need a good marketing department, and they're going to need to be acutely aware of that sales enablement piece, exactly what's going to help move that needle at the key time. Because you can't have a salesperson on site all the time. What's going to happen is, and we know this, right? The CTO is going to talk to the CEO, and they're going to be talking about it in a meeting, and they're going to ping you on a Slack or whatever, and your champion is going to need to have that piece of data, that slide, that case study ready to send then and there. And if not, that's when you lose a sale. It's not actually when you're on the call, it's the work that marketing has done in the background. It means that they can internally share the right information at the right time. And any sales people that don't realize that are going to lose deals, and they're not even going to know why, right? Because the conversations they have are going to be really positive, but so much goes on behind the scenes, and that's what a good marketing
well that's the thing about
valuable.
I suppose that's what you get into. There's the whole self-selection and that that customers actually can do the DD on your organization, on what you offer, even before they even talk to you.
Sure. More and more these days, right? Like, and this is why, even the days of a brochure website are done, because it's pretty boring, it's pretty static. A lot of what we're seeing in the Atlassian space, we're recommending people make a self-serve playground, so that if you have an app, people don't have to put in their credit card details in order to start a 30-day evaluation. No, they just go to your website and they play with your app right then and there.
Like a free trial, yeah.
Well, but immediate, right? No steps. And the traditional sales.
You mean no hurdles? You mean basically?
No hurdles whatsoever. No barriers to entry, right? And the traditional sales model, you'd be like, oh no, they can't see it unless they give us their email, right?
And they're in nice inside leg measurement, exactly.
Sure, but the truth is, like, why? Because, like, what is better? What conversation are you going to have with them that's better than them actually seeing your product? And honestly, if they see your product and they're not interested, you've got a bigger problem than your sales script, right?
Yeah, because there's a feature disparity, or there's not enough compelling capability in what you're offering. Yeah.
And the second thing I recommend now is tools such as Hotjar, because what that means is you can then record how everyone's using your app. And so if people aren't clicking, okay, subscribe now, buy now, you can see what their journey was. Did they find out about your cool feature, or was the button not clear enough, so they never even got to click on it?
You mean the analysis of the website, like heat map, basically, where they
actually do a heat map, and you can actually see videos of every click they did, and so you can see, how are the trials going, and get that direct feedback. It used to be really hard to get. Now every single person trialing your tool becomes like they're part of a focus group, giving you direct feedback. And that we talked about, getting sales and marketing to work together. That gets sales, marketing, and product.
Yes,
all
correct.
Surrounded around the same data. That's really useful. So this is, the future's exciting, right?
It's called customer. No, it's interesting because I think it's what you're highlighting is it's rather than operating in silos, you've actually got to get this team collaboration. Back to the boat analogy, where we met. When you're on a sailing yacht, there is actually, you do have to actually work as a team, get that working, winch that in, all that kind of stuff, and get rid of all the pretense and all the politics, you could say, because it is a bit like a rapid action team. You've got to knuckle down and also try and keep learning of what's working, what's not working, and adjust your it's a bit like being on a boat, adjust your course. Adjust to the wind, right, as any good sailor would, because you can't just be like, here's my job, here's my KPI, I will stamp. Anything like that gets automated, right? Like, the reason you have people managing the machines and the software is because it's their job to think and reflect and react. And that's why you want to automate all of the repetitive stuff, because you don't want your team caught in repetitive actions, right? You want them always thinking, did that work? And that's why you hinted on it very clearly. Politics kills this, because as soon as someone's scared to be like, this isn't working, then the team's not learning. So you got a bigger problem, right? Yeah. So I know you touched on this kind of, so there's this kind of G and T. I knocked my glasses off. G and T, growth and technology. Yeah. So you've kind of got, I suppose you explained a bit about your personal, your business growth journey, some of the things you've done and how you've learned. What's been, so could you go through some of your personal things? What have you learned in your kind of peaks and valleys? Is there anything you would share with the audience about what you've learned as you've gone through that? It sounds like it's not all been peaks, it's been some valleys as well.
And I think that's the main thing I'd share, is that that there are a lot of bad days, right? Strikes and gutters.
What do you call it? Strikes and
gutters, right? Bowling.
Okay.
I think I worry. You see a lot of Instagram entrepreneurs. And they haven't even started work, and they're already against the idea of getting a job, and they're going to go start their own business, and it's all going to be fine and easy, and no one's going to tell them what to do. They're going to be sorely disappointed. Like,
you mean the Gen Z guys? You mean, what did you call it?
It's easy to pick on the younger generation, right? We know people. We know people our age that are just the same. They're miserable in their job, and they have this dream in their head that when they start their own company, everything will be fine and dandy. And we know that's not the case, right? Like, it's very, very tough working for yourself. You are your own worst boss. I've worked 7 days a week for months on end. I think I missed my birthday and Christmas for 3 consecutive years. And it was really funny. I once had when I was in Thailand with the tour company, I had my Thai staff ask for Christmas off. And I said, well, I'm working Christmas. Why do you get Christmas off? And they're like, but it's a holiday. And I'm like, yeah, and we're in tourism. This is a day to work, right? And I said, all right, I'll be fair. Tell me 3 things about Jesus and I will give you the day off. So,
he had long hair, yeah?
Yeah, long hippie.
He had long hair. He was good at karaoke.
Karaoke legend.
And he loved a good curry. That's what it is. Yeah, those are the 3 for me. That's a good question. That's a good question.
Anyway, we're going off on a tangent. There are really tough days, and it gets very hard. And the joy of working for a company is that work finishes at 5. And if it's not in your job description, you probably don't have to do it. Now, when you're an entrepreneur, the buck always stops with you. I got a contract with a big hotel, with Novotel, right, my tour company. I didn't have a lawyer I could go and say, hi, could you look over this contract? I started Googling contract law. It's tough. And when things got really bad, like, everyone loves a winner, baby, right? But nobody knows you when you're down and out. And when the company started struggling, like, I lost friends, I had people betray me, I had people try and steal from me. Really, really tough lessons learned the hard way.
Wow.
So honestly, like, there's a lot of troughs and a lot more than people think. Right? Everyone wants to be Zuckerberg and make $1 billion to one company.
Really?
Honestly, like, statistically, you're likely to fail, and you're not likely to get rich quick. And if you are, it's going to be an enormous amount of hard work. So I think the only thing that'll see you through that is if you actually enjoy the journey. And I see people that, if your aim in life is to be rich, then being an entrepreneur is probably not for you. You should become a consultant and get paid $500 a day to do something. And be fine on that path.
Yeah, but I mean, but it's interesting. So what you're talking about there is about finding your passion. A bit like, find something that stimulates you to get out of bed. And if you do, you know, I suppose links to some of the philosophy I've got is, you know, if you do the things that you're actually inspired and passionate about, then actually you will attract the kind of right people in your circulation, and actually things will start to happen.
It's funny you say that, because that's exactly the philosophy behind how I met my co-founder. So,
okay. All right. Okay.
I was at Adaptivist. He was leaving, and I think they were a bit sad he was leaving or whatever. Like, there was no fanfare, there was no leaving party. So he was. I was like, oh, dude, let's go out for drinks, right? And apparently I was the only one. And because of that, I took him out for dinner, had a chat with him, and he was telling me he was thinking of starting his own business, which has always been my dream, right?
You were, just a question, Chris, you were the only guy at his leaving do?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, it was sad. And so while I was there chatting with him, he was telling me he was starting a business. Young guy, very excited. And I just happily gave him all the advice in the world, because that's what I do, right? Like, as I say, I love why I'm here. Love talking about myself, love sharing my knowledge.
You're a giver. You're a giver.
There you go. I just talk to anyone that will listen to me, right?
Sorry, the power supply is going to go. Sorry, no. Keep going. Right.
Had a great chat with him. Gave him loads of advice, not expecting anything in return. And then 6 months later, he came back and was like, Chris, I want you on the team. How do we make that happen? And that wouldn't have happened had I not been open-minded, had I not been willing to go for a drink with him and just tell him as much as possible. And that leads on to my second piece of advice for everyone, is like, find a mentor. I think it's really important if you want to survive the ups and downs, is don't be too proud. Talk to someone that's been there, done that. And there is so much wisdom out there floating around in people's heads. And people often ask, oh, how do I find a mentor? It's really easy. Just talk to people and listen. Like, people love it when you listen to them, you take their advice and you action on it. And I've had that throughout my entrepreneurial career. Is I've always known I think it was because I started so young, so I was always out of my depth and I knew it. And that meant I had to go to people and be like, okay, I'm 24 and I'm director of a company with 10 staff. I don't know what I'm doing. Help me.
You should definitely watch that. If you've not watched, watch that Mike Cannon Brooks TEDx thing he did. Have you seen it?
It's been a few years ago, but I think I had.
Yeah. Because he basically, there's definitely some analogies to that about being authentic and being honest about where you are and not putting pretense around it. I suppose that's the thing.
We understand the instinct, right? Like, it's tough when you hire people and they're looking up to you, and you get in this habit of pretending you have the answers. And the funny thing is, it's counterintuitive, but people respect you more when you say, I don't have the answers, and that's okay to admit. That's the culture we have here, right? And then instead of becoming that weird domineering boss, you give them power and you say to your team, okay, guys, help me solve this problem.
Yeah.
And they don't have to pretend they have the answer either. They're like, well, I'm going to go away and Google it. Let's work it out.
Well, you start to build kind of, employee engagement and loyalty. I was telling somebody the other day about some of the stuff I did at Tesco and Tesco Mobile, and we were laughing about. So apparently, even this was a guy that joined Tesco Mobile 5 years after I left. So in 2012, he joined, and apparently they were still talking about some of the things that I was doing when we launched it, when we were running it. One of the examples was we had a call centre in Bury near Manchester, and there's about 100, probably 80 to 100 staff on this mezzanine floor, and they'd be taking all the calls from customers. So I literally said to my team, my operations team, I said, right, okay, we're going to go up to Bury, and we're going to go on the phones live. And they go, what? Yeah, we're going to go and do it, and I'm going to go and do it, and you're going to go and do it, and we're going to do it live. Oh, I don't want to do that. And I go, look, if I'm doing it, you're doing it. So we did it, and the kudos we got out of doing that, because basically there's no hierarchy, it's all one team. The kind of the goodwill we got out of the back of that was just unbelievable. And that's the thing about just to the point you made about actually admitting that you don't know all the answers, or actually doing frontline roles with people, you really learn. It's a really good experience.
Although I got to be honest, I wouldn't ask anyone to cold call someone. I wouldn't be prepared to do it myself anymore. And like I say, with the right software, you shouldn't need to anymore. So. But yeah, I do respect the example of leading from the front, and it's joyful when you only are asking for things that you'd be prepared to do yourself. That's how you're going to build trust with people.
Yeah, so I know you said that you'd also done some stuff at Adaptivist, which is obviously quite a successful Atlassian company as well, isn't it?
Yeah. So it was really interesting because Clear Vision and Adaptivist have some similarities and some differences. The main difference, though, was at Clear Vision I was in a marketing role, and at Adaptivist I was in the sales role. So it became very hard to compare in the end. And it was fascinating making that switch, going back to my sales background and seeing it from the other end. And then being a salesman with a marketing background is interesting, right? Right, like you see things from a different perspective and a different angle, and you understand why different departments do things different ways. So GDPR from a marketing perspective is just a compliance issue, right? To avoid getting in trouble with. Sales, it's it's something to skirt around as deftly as possible.
It's a hack. Yeah.
So something to hack, right?
So being at Adaptivist was selling what, products and services, or services mainly?
Both. Yeah, absolutely. So they have ScriptRunner, which is the largest app in the marketplace, and it's all about automation. And it lets people make their own apps, in effect. So
do they have something called Green something as well? What's that? Green something? Was that theirs as well? Can't remember.
Not that I ever sold.
Okay.
Did you?
Green.
Did you have some green with the team at Adaptivist? That's
Yeah, we're going to go off on a CBD kind of route now, aren't we? Yeah, so no. So,
I think I'd like to say my lawyers advised me that Adaptivists don't sell weed. You know, let's just make that clear for the record.
Without prejudice, yeah. So you now join with your co-founder at Old Street. By the way, I think it's a great name. It's a bit long.
Yeah, well, everyone just shortens it to Old Street, and I'm fine with that. It's one of those things
really?
where like your customers rename you, right? We're Old Street Solutions or Old Street Software, and everyone's just like, oh, you guys are like Old Street. We're like, yeah, cool. So yeah, we've just bridged it. Old Street, you know, is Silicon Roundabout, very tech, London. It's honestly a name that my other co-founder came up with. He wanted something that sounded London and sounded cool to Americans. So.
Oh, really? Okay.
That's the plan.
Yeah, Silicon Roundabout's a bit long as well, isn't it? So.
Yeah, but yeah, we're cashing in on that image and vibe, and it is, you know, the tech hub of London meets Brick Lane, graffiti everywhere. So
It's like the Bronx of London.
Yeah, so it's a lot cooler than I have any right to claim to be.
So you're walking around with your trousers halfway. You're driving. I noticed you obviously started to develop a hipster style.
This is my Steve Jobs polo neck. Look.
Oh, sorry. That's your Palo Alto look, is it? Yeah, okay. Yeah, one of the meetups that I've been helping out with over the last couple of years is a test automation group with one of my friends, Shashi, and we've got about 3,000 people actually in it. And every time we run it, there's about I don't know 100 to 150 people there. But he's actually just joined Apple. He actually got headhunted by Apple in the summer,
nice.
And he was so happy. I've never seen anybody so happy. But the reason he did that, and this is the power of the internet, is that he put blogs out there, he did meetups, he put content out there, he gave back to the world, yeah. And they spotted him, and now he runs the Xcode DevOps team for Apple, which he said is his dream job. And I think it's a fantastic endorsement of what you can do as an individual, by actually applying these brain cells and giving back to the world and sharing stuff. And then
giving back's key, right? The path to success isn't the direct one. So helping other people, right? In the end, the love you make is equal to the love you take, or whatever the Beatles said, right? You give to the world and you'll receive back. You don't need to expect it.
But no, but that example in particular, exactly, because it's, I mean, who, if you think about 5, 10, 25 years ago, how could you envisage a tech company that's as respected as something like Apple finding basically doing talent acquisition, because, so they call it HR stroke hiring now, talent acquisition, by that person promoting themselves through different mediums of the technology, showing their skills and how they've grown as an individual, and then actually being headhunted by one of the most valuable companies in the world. It's just, I mean, it's what a fantastic story. I mean, it's just amazing.
New world. I mean, let's think 15 years ago, right? What percentage of people got to be on TV, right? Whereas right now, we're making media. So the technology's enabled everyone to get out there. And I think people just need to shift in that mindset. Like, blogs are one thing, but nowadays, like, it doesn't matter what format you're comfortable with, as long as you're sharing.
Well, this is a vlog. This is a vlog, isn't it, kind of thing, or a...
all the cool terms, yeah, sure.
So I know you talked a bit about what you do today. So you joined up with your co-founder. What's your co-founder called, by the way?
Tom Harris. So he's an Atlassian consultant himself, and now he manages the products. And we actually work with development teams around the world. So we have partnerships with development teams in Slovakia, Poland, and Australia. And then we have clients in a few other countries as well. And so what we do is help them with the marketing and growth side of things. So sometimes as clients, so that they just pay us as a consultancy to help them with marketing, or sometimes we collaborate and we co-own the apps together. So we have 11 apps on the Atlassian marketplace.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, available on Server Cloud and Data Center. And they're all focused on mostly non-technical users and making the experience easier for them.
So you kind of, what you've done is you've curated the kind of learnings from what you did at Clear Vision, what you did at Adaptivist, and kind of put into like a kit bag or a kind of a method of how you other app providers exist and grow in the Atlassian world or Atlassian ecosystem.
Sure, that and also the things I wanted to do at Clear Vision and Adaptivist, but they wouldn't let me. So
okay.
The freedom of being an entrepreneur, right? And I mean, honestly, both Clear Vision and Adaptivist massively successful, and there may have been a very smart reason why they didn't do it that way. But I'm too independent. I'd rather do it myself and fail and learn than be told no by a boss, right?
That's really interesting. So when you say the apps, you're saying basically it's in the dev space, it's in the dev tool space, it's for is the main audience for those?
No. So Atlassian's grown beyond the dev space because it's project management. More and more non-technical teams have started using it. So you have marketing departments who, again, big companies working with lots of moving parts, and they've applied in the agile methodology taken from software. All these companies want to be as disruptive as software companies. So they're borrowing the tools, borrowing the practice, and which means that they're now using Confluence as their wiki, Jira as their project manager. And Atlassian love this growth into the less technical space. Unfortunately, the first wave of developers made very technical tools for very technical people. So Script Runner is a great example. Fantastic tool. Couldn't be more powerful. You need to be a groovy developer in order to use it.
Right. Okay.
I don't know, what percentage of your marketing team is a groovy developer?
Let me just get that book out of the library. Yes, sorry.
Sure.
Oh, it's already been booked out. Yeah.
So, you then have two choices. You mean that every department has a developer on it, so your marketing team has a developer on it if they want to use the Atlassian tools. Or if you look at tools like automation for Jira, you just make it drag and drop, easy to use, easy to maintain. Now, both have their space. Okay, like there's a time and a place for the super powerful tools for super technical users. However, all of our apps have a one-to-one relationship. So whereas like the average Script Runner customer, only one person out of 1,000 will use it, but it will be so useful and valuable that it's worth it for that. Our apps are very small, very simple, right? Makes the charts look better, makes them more customizable, makes it easier to change the colors and options. That's one of our apps, right? Anyone can use that. If the marketing guy wants to show the marketing director a report on that sprint and what went well and what went badly and what's delayed, he can just do it, or he or she can just do it, drag and drop, easy, done. Don't need to use any development, don't need to take away a developer's valuable time to make that pretty simple and basic report. And more importantly, don't have to export the data into Excel and then have it sit there siloed, gathering dust, loads of different versions, marketing report, sprint 2, version 2, final, updated. So everything becomes real time and collaborative, which the Atlassian tools are helping people with in the tech space. And now,
so it becomes so what you're saying is it's like agile becomes mainstream. Becomes more of a business capability as well as a technology capability, because it was always hidden under the CIO, the CTO kind of remit, VP of engineering, and then it's moved into kind of more business functions.
And the cross-pollination, which is gonna just keep happening, right?
Because you know that when we were at that session at John Lewis the other week, and there was that guy, I can't remember what he was called, the guy that did the presentation that was working for a company that got acquired by Atlassian recently. Because they seem to be doing like a bigger project, like a kind of
Jira Align, formerly Agilecraft.
That's it, yeah. What's that? Well, how you describe that then? What does that mean?
That is similar to Big Picture Software Plan. That's at massive scale. So that's for huge companies that want that overarching project program view. So above programs, right? Project program, huge. That's when you want a view of how 10,000 people are performing when you've got that many moving parts, right? So
wow.
I'm sure there's use cases where smaller companies would use Jira Align, but for me, it's much more about getting a good overview for massive enterprises. And as Atlassian goes mainstream and marketing team starts working on it, and HR starts working on it, you're going to see more and more of the need to have this overarching view. And it's the joy of something like Jira Line, rather than each department, the old way, right, having to export to Excel and put it into a PowerPoint that they report on once a month. If everyone set their data up right, everyone can get a snapshot of what's working for who.
So it becomes your like business operating model of how you run the whole company. That's huge. That's going to be huge then.
It's game changing. Yeah. And Atlassian aren't the only people working on the space, but I think they're well positioned to handle both the technical and non-technical teams and join them together.
Yeah, because you see this. I mean, what that just triggers in my head is about that whole thing is the the famous Mark Andreessen quote. Software's eating the world, and then every software every company should be a software company. It's all that kind of thing. It's the engineering heritage is now becoming more prevalent. It's becoming more amplified as a core capability or a core competence of a company, because it's disrupting industries, it's disrupting markets. I mean,
and to follow on from that metaphor, I think that the first generation of software was very much like the first generation of cars, right? You had to be a tinkerer, you had to be an engineer. It kept breaking down and you had to get the crank out. Very complex. It was made for the many that loved tinkering with things, right? Whereas nowadays, my nan drives her Fiat round, right? So it doesn't matter. It's for everyone. It's become mainstream. And it's very much the thing for software now is that the new wave of software, you're not going to need an engineering background to understand the back end. You're just going to pick up your mouse, drag and drop, do what you want, and it'll work. And so, anyone from HR or marketing is going to start using these tools. And once that happens, there's a lot more money in it, because as we've already seen with things like Salesforce, if you can target those non-technical people and make their life easier and make them do things quicker and automate the jobs they don't like, there's a lot of money to be made in that space.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing, isn't it? I mean, I do admit that I do use Instagram, and I put obviously at the GT sessions, just for everybody's notice. And the interesting thing was that it's actually 20 years ago this year that Salesforce was founded by Mark and Parker. Mark, Lord Benioff, Mr. Benioff, and Mr. Harris. And I actually had lunch with Parker Harris about 10, 12 years ago at Dreamforce, because I was actually going to OEM. I was actually going to create a strategy tool, and we are going to call it Strategy Force. And we were going to OEM Force.com and build it as an app. Which now I think I should have maybe done it, but maybe I don't know. Never say never.
All right, let's talk after this podcast, because we're in the process of acquiring. Do you know MuleSoft, which is an integrator with Salesforce? Yeah. So we're acquiring a MuleSoft Jira integrator, and I'm looking at that. And I've always wanted to make a Salesforce add-on, because that's my background, that's the tool I know, and once I started automating things and providing visibility to the sales team, and I never looked back. So it's a fantastic tool, and I think my next project I'd love to make something in the Salesforce space. So let's talk offline about that.
It's a very vibrant ecosystem. Their marketplace is amazing, and the stories from their original foundation about, I don't know if you've ever heard the story where Spark told me about this thing where they were trying to emulate a user. They actually had a couple of apartments in this San Francisco block, and they were literally throwing cables, down the corridors to try and basically simulate how it was going to run the system. It was just like, some of the stories are hilarious.
It's something my co-founder does that I'm very respectful of. So Tom Harris, engineering background, and he appreciates his strengths and not my strengths. And often when he makes something, rather than just tell me what it is, he'll just send it over and be like, play with this, let me know what you think, and he'll see what features I find, what value I get from it. And I think that's brilliant, because it's very easy to make assumptions, right?
You get the fusion of ideas, and you can bounce off that, can't you?
And sometimes I spot it all, and he's like, brilliant, cool, like it's idiot proof. Sometimes I'm like, sorry, I have no idea what this tool does or what the benefit is. He's like, okay, I need some work then.
It's not the mum test as well. It's the Chris test. It's the big Chris test.
If I don't break it, it must be powerful.
Well, hey. So I suppose a bit about the future. Yeah. So you talked about some about your journey talked about the tech stuff you're involved, which sounds really exciting. And I'm glad you've broken out and unleashing your inner entrepreneur rather than being the entrepreneur.
Yeah, me too. Thank you. I'm really enjoying it.
I suppose the question is about what do you see in the future? Have you got any views on the future of tech? Any things or any future of tech? And I suppose we'll cover another future in a second as well. But any kind of concerns or any kind of optimism around the future of tech?
I mean, my optimism and pessimism varies with the weather. You've got me in a good mood today, so
that's good.
I think the joy of software and the space we work in is that everyone, any job that's repetitive, boring, and manual, tedious, can be automated, and that's going to happen more and more. And so, not only as more automation happens, but as just software becomes bigger and bigger, they're going to have to keep recruiting weirdos like me, and you're going to have that cross-pollination of new people with new ideas, right? Like, so the next artist won't want to work in paper and paint, but the tools will be good enough that they can create something with the virtual reality or augmented reality 3D brush, right? And so as that cross-pollinates and tech no longer becomes a weird niche thing for nerds, but ubiquitous and just how we interact with the world, I think it's going to get more and more exciting, more and more creative, more and more beautiful. And I'm glad to say positive things, because I think the robots are going to take over, and I'm very happy with our robot overlords. I support them, and I'm not joining the resistance.
Oh, you mean they're going to dig out Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he's going to be in his kind of in his
yeah. When that battle happens, I want to be on Arnold Schwarzenegger's side.
Is it Skynet?
Skynet, yeah.
I mean, it's actually when you look at that movie, it's quite amazing. If you rewatch that movie and you now think what's happening now, what you hear about now, it's in the more general public domain. It shows how in the future those things were thinking. So it's quite amazing.
So there's an interesting conversation to be had there, because the AI of the future will be built by corporations, right? So Google will have their own AI, Facebook will have their own AI, AWS will have their own AI. Will that nuke the world? Probably not. But will it make life better for most people, or just make 4 billionaires? Well, things tend to be skewing that way at the moment, right? Bless him. Jeff Bezos gave £90 million to a homeless charity last week.
Oh, really?
Unfortunately, that's the equivalent of me or you giving £40.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, but I was showing some guys in New Zealand the other week. I don't know if you've heard about this, where all the billionaires and millionaires, multimillionaires, are actually out now building, their own houses, or building their own hobbit hangouts.
Bunkers. Apocalypse bunkers, that's what they are. Don't make them sound cute. Like, they're preparing for the apocalypse.
But they're doing that, and actually, so they can disconnect from the internet. They can disconnect from all this tech stuff, which I think it's like wow, they've created fortunes out of actually leveraging that technology evolution, and now they're actually checking out and actually having an escape pod effectively in another country, which I think it's
already happening.
Mind blowing.
The young generation are a lot less addicted to the phones than we are. Honestly, and intentionally make the time to get offline. I've started seeing, actually, like, I have a pool club nearby, and it's full of people. No one's touching their phones. They just want to get out and socialize. So I think these things come in.
You mean pool? You mean that pool, or you mean?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, playing the game pool. So
yeah. I had these visions of you in kind of like, some kind of skimpy
hanging out with young people in the swimming pool. No, again, my lawyer has advised me that's not what's happening. That's not what we're about.
Yes.
So I'm positive. I think that tech will become a tool. I understand why it became so addictive. Sacha Baron Cohen, Ali G, just did a beautiful video talking about how broken some of the social media platforms are, how the algorithm lends itself to an addictive, attention-seeking economy, and how fake news will always get more clicks than actual news. These things need to be fixed, but people forget how new this technology is, right? Like it's kind of like the first, for the first 20 years of cars, how good were airbags and seatbelts? Well, neither of them existed for the first 20 years, right? So I'm confident we can adjust our sails to the wind and fix the problems we have, as we've done before with many other techs.
If Borat is commenting on tech platforms, then I'm cool. I'm fine about that, because his mankini, his bright green mankini that he wore, that I saw a picture of him, is legendary. In fact, actually, I've got like a bright green headphones on here
to match the mankini you have at home. Well, thanks for not wearing the mankini today.
It's underneath. It's underneath. What do you know? Anyway, I'll just let you know, I jumped in the Serpentine 2 weeks ago with my good friend Bruno. It was pretty cold, but there was 10 of us jumped in last February. And I did it for a bet because he's from Croatia. And unfortunately, England lost to Croatia in the semi-final of the World Cup last summer. So I said I'd jump in the Serpentine. And he said, okay, well, I'm in London in October. Let's go and do it in October. So we actually did it. And we jumped in, we stripped off, completely naked. Well, not completely naked, but we jumped in. And then there was all these school kids appeared, like 30 school kids. And they're going, teacher, what are these men doing in the water? And I was thinking, what are we doing in here? It's absolutely freezing. But it was very, it's a good way of working. We did some Wim Hof breathing, the Wim Hof stuff, like Iceman Wim Hof. So I'll tell you about it when we see each other next. But,
interesting. I'm going to bring this back to our topic masterfully, right? Recover from this random segue tangent. So my last piece of advice for people who want to be entrepreneurs and want to grow in tech is don't be ashamed of making a fool of yourself. Right? And I think that's really key.
See, what you've just done is you've just justified my little story there as well.
Yes, mate, beautifully. Because it's a ridiculous experience, but like anything in life, if you don't put yourself out there, if you don't try new things, and if you're scared of looking a fool, you're never going to grow, you're never going to learn. And if you look at how sports people learn, it involves a lot of falling over and a lot of failure. And repeat. You get up and you do it again. And this is what I worry for people that think that being an entrepreneur is easy. It's not. It's very hard. And the only way you'll do it is if not only you enjoy the journey, but you enjoy the failures as well. And you get up, you dust yourself off, you continue. And that's not just for entrepreneurs as well. For anyone in the marketing or tech space, you have to be prepared to fail. You have to be prepared to make mistakes and own them and admit them. You don't have to tell every single customer every time your app goes down. But you at least need to be in a position where you're ready to be honest and clear with yourself and with your teammates, because that's going to create that culture of learning that we were talking about earlier. Yeah.
So that was great, because you actually recovered my story then, you see. You actually said, you're saying, how, Andrew, 10 years ago, why would you consider jumping in the Serpentine when it was actually near freezing?
Because you're the type of person that tries new things,
because
isn't afraid to make a fool of himself, and likes to do things as a team. And when your crazy friend suggested it, you said yes. And that's how you end up trying new things and being an entrepreneur.
But the funny thing is, my tech link to that is then when I was actually working with one of my clients, my customers, who's a fintech company, we actually did a summit a couple of weeks ago in the Hilton Hotel in Bankside. And I was talking to some of the people, some of the banking people, some of the financial services people, and some of the guys, and they actually said, "Oh, right, next time you're doing it, can I come with you?" So it's like, oh, there you go. So there's going to be more than 2 of us next time, including you, Big Chris. Yeah, we're going to get you in the Serpentine. That is the objective before Christmas.
Sorry, what is, I took you sailing, and to return the favour, you're suggesting I jump in a cold river in winter.
It's you'll feel so alive, even more alive than you normally are. Anyway,
I feel pretty alive. Anyway,
don't commit to it on this episode, because I know that you're being a bit shy now. Not this your normal kind of operating model, but
But Andrew, had we not gone sailing together, we never would have built this friendship, and I wouldn't be talking to you today. So glad we took risks. Don't think I'll be joining you in the river, but very, very glad to do this podcast and have.
Hey, that's something we could do a future episode in the river. It's an aquatic river version. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us today on the G&T Sessions podcast. This has been Andrew Turner, the founder and host of the podcast, and generously joined and shared amazingly from his penthouse in London, in the tech centre of the world, Mr. Chris Cooke.
Thank you very much for having us, Andrew.
Thank you so much for being on it, and we will definitely check in the future and see how the Old Street posse, the Old Street has become a unicorn.
Well,
in its own right.
Space.
So there you go. That's the message for today. Thank you very much for your time, and hope you enjoyed the episode, and see you now on the next episode. Take care, Chris. Have a great weekend. Take care.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
guys. Take care.